What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, playing today the Nintendo Switch Lite because it's finally been released, and what's funny is, I feel like I'm the only person who's actually excited for it. This is a handheld only version of the Nintendo Switch, and I see so many people on the internet saying, what is even the point? How is that actually worth the price? Obviously, the main reason the Nintendo Switch has become so overwhelmingly popular is because it is both a handheld and a console. It manages to fit into both systems at once, and this really only serves one purpose. But still, I feel like the thing it's trying to do, it absolutely achieves. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive look at the Switch, talking about what's new about this, why it feels so good, and how it actually stands up against its predecessor. Now, the thing that immediately strikes you as soon as you start even trying to open the box of the Nintendo Switch Lite is the fact that it's just tremendously smaller than the original mainline Switch. And this is because it cannot dock. There is no dock even in the box. All you're getting is the system and a power cord. Because you're getting less, you are getting a lower price tag. This is $200 rather than the $300 of the Nintendo Switch itself. So what are you getting for a lower cost? Well, this actually has some functionality removed from it. Like, one of the things is there's no kickstand. One of the things they've definitely advertised a lot is if you're actually somewhere, you can put your Switch up. You can just set it somewhere. Look at that. I'll just shove it right there right now. Look at that. And it'll stay. You can't do that with the Switch Lite. It's actually completely impossible because the back is fully smoothed. Now, what they decided to do very clearly is this is much more ergonomic. They clearly wanted this to be, since it is only handheld, they were able to smooth out the back and make it so it rests in your hands more evenly. Since this doesn't have to have any of that background stuff and no detachable Joy-Cons, this is now all one piece. Now, I know there's a question that a lot of people have, which is, if there's no Joy-Cons, can it still play with other controllers? And yes, it can. If you'd like to, it's fully possible to actually sync up any controllers you want to the Switch, that way you're playing a multiplayer, it can work. So what are the benefits of this? If you're not actually having Joy-Cons, a kickstand, or console ability, why is this actually worth it? Who is this really for? I mean, I feel like this is a valid question, and certainly the one that's being asked the most. And I honestly believe that this is for people like myself. I am two things simultaneously. I am a huge lover of the original Game Boy. I'm actually super into it. Even, this is real, my wallet is even actually a Game Boy. I have everything I can Game Boy related. Every model of every Game Boy. I have complete boxes of all of them. So I really like the idea that this, to me, does sort of echo the sentiment of OG Nintendo. The idea of making the biggest experiences on the tiniest screens, which is sort of what actually arose originally in the Game Boy generation. This actually has that GB feel. But more than that, it's actually for people who don't game at home as much. Now, I do game like 40, 50, or even 60 hours a week here at home just for fun, but that's on stuff like my PlayStation 4. If I'm actually playing something on a TV, I want it to be a giant cinematographic experience, something with giant cutscenes and huge explosions or really tight first-person shooters. More and more, I actually like my Switch because it has indie games, weird racing stuff, or weird time travel games that have me constantly repeating levels, like in Katana Zero. And I think that having a smaller screen like this doesn't actually do a detriment. I can play this on the go, and while the screen is ever so slightly shrunken down, it's not like you're actually having the entire experience completely removed. So if you have any concerns that it may be too tiny, and the fact that you may not actually be able to read like the font of a more finessed little RPG or something, you can put those fears at ease. Now, I'm going to show you a bunch of zoomed in gameplay of how it all looks on the Switch Lite, but I actually just real quickly want to show you what this looks like on both systems at once. And I want to do this just to try and really put your fears at ease and say that the Switch Normal versus the Switch Lite, it is smaller. It is noticeably tinier, but I don't think that it's so substantial that it would actually break the immersion if you were trying to play something like an RPG. If you're trying to play something that's going to have tiny font or really specific little stuff happening on the screen that you need to see in excruciating detail, Both of these can provide it. This is not something where you're actually going to be unable to actually glance at a text box or unable to understand a tutorial. Now, something I actually love about this is that since this is tinier, it actually has a better battery life because it actually has the same internal guts, basically, of a standard Switch. Since it has a smaller screen, of course you're going to get that juice going a lot further. That is great. Additionally, this is something you wouldn't think is a big deal, but it actually comes out great. There is a real D-pad. Finally, this is an official D-pad being done by freaking Nintendo, and I absolutely love it. The fact that we can finally actually play, so I play a lot of fighting games with a D-pad, and I like the fact that I can now do all my circle motions and stuff very seamlessly on this bad boy. The only thing about this that really struck me as a major concern going into it is the fact that Nintendo Switch Online is still a little bit weird. So let's just talk about the crazy hypothetical. People like me, I'm keeping both. This is now going to be my main Switch, but I am going to keep and play both these systems. I'm probably going to keep this one predominantly docked now, and this will be the one I play when I'm traveling or at conventions and stuff like that. But my concern was, how is it going to work having multiple Switches? Am I going to be able to actually have two full experiences, or will this actually be limited in some capacity? So I did a bunch of experimenting over the course of the last day to actually do the more specific nitty-gritty stuff like transferring save files. Now the cloud saves are still not 100%. Some games like Splatoon 2, you can't actually send your data up into the cloud. We're not going to be able to do it for things like Animal Crossing or something like Dark Souls. But you can do it for most stuff. And while I'm not extremely happy about the fact that it's not 100% even freeform, I like that it's still close to full. Also, it is weird, the cloud save data definitely still takes, it seems like it requires a lot of bandwidth. What I mean is that as an experiment, I tried to transfer save datas back and forth using a cell phone as a Bluetooth hotspot. Basically, I wanted to try and send something in the cloud of a game I'm currently beating and pick it up here. For that hypothetical scenario of, say I left my house and I wanted to pick up where I left off and I forgot to transfer something over. It's possible, but it definitely takes a second. It has to download a lot of save data to try and get your place from there to here. I guess the real heavy question here, though, is do I regret it? This was $200 freaking dollars. I spent my own money to get this, and now after playing it for a day, I don't. I actually think that this is a very, very remarkable device. It's smooth, it's sleek, it's really tight, and it'll probably much more hardcore. Since there's not as many moving parts, I do feel like this may be stronger. If you're actually looking at getting a Switch for your kids, I highly recommend this version. I used to play with my niece and nephew a lot. We played a lot of Mario Kart, and I was genuinely nervous that they would break part of it. Just because if they're actually picking up the controller of a $300 device, it just makes me a little bit nervous that they're going to snap something off. This is one big, glorious turquoise chunk. You couldn't break this. This feels so sturdy. I genuinely believe that I could actually drop this off like I live in a high-up apartment. If I drop this off the stairway, it'd be fine. I think that this is actually a very tough machine, and I'm curious to keep seeing what other people think about it. If I had to make a crazy prediction, and I want you to quote me on this later on, I actually believe that this may end up being the best-selling version of the Switch. I actually think that by the time that the Switch 2 comes out, or whatever the next version of a Nintendo console ends up being, I actually think that the Switch Mini will outsell the standardized Switch, the home console Switch, because not only is this $100 cheaper, but it's super, super accessible. This is going to be the new family device. Already, I'm actually wanting to buy a bunch for my friends. A lot of my friends who haven't picked up a Switch, this is now cheap enough that I think I can pick it up for them, give them a copy of Zelda, give them a copy of something like Mario Odyssey, and show them why this is so magnificent. This is now the premier way to play weird indie games, and honestly, in general, gaming on the go. But what do you think of it? Have you actually purchased a Nintendo Switch Lite, or are you actually just kind of waiting on it? Are you one of those people who thinks that this is a super stupid gadget because it's a Switch that can't switch? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. I'm actually going to leave that flub in there. Normally I try and edit out all my errors, but I'm just going to let you know I was up pretty much all night playing this, and it's great. It doesn't really install faster, it doesn't really do anything totally different, but that's fine. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.